So, welcome to Cosmic Conversations. The aim of this series is to introduce different healers who um, provide alternative healing. And today we're going to be having a conversation with Neha Erasmus. So, Neha is she's an intuitive, she's a healer, she's a teacher, and she's a facilitator. She works with individuals, groups, and organizations to guide them into the highest possibilities for their lives. And I am now going to let Neha introduce herself and tell us a little bit about herself.
So yes, as you said, I'm an intuit. So I work with intuition. I use intuition. That's primarily the way that I create and express in this world. I'm a healer, so I work as a healer. So I work one-to-one and I work with groups in healing. I am also a teacher. I teach my brand, which is philosophy, spiritual political philosophy. So I teach all the knowledge and wisdom of the spiritual realm, and how can we apply it in our lives and in the work in our work in order to transform our realities and transform the realities of the world.
Wonderful.
And then I'm a facilitator, so I work with different organizations and companies, and I facilitate bespoke programs and processes for them to help them to access deeper knowledge, deeper intelligence, take their work to a higher level of possibility.
Okay, it sounds very, very fascinating. But before we get into all of the work that you do, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you come to be here, to be a healer? What is your background and what is your awakening story?
So my background, I spent about 15 years working in South Sudan, and Ethiopia. I worked in social change, social transformation. I worked in peacemaking, mediation. I worked at a lot of different levels. I worked with grassroots communities, and I also worked with heads of state and government. So I worked at all levels of society, and I was really, you could talk about maybe a humanitarian, but with a focus on peace and political change, political transformation and social transformation. And then I had my son about nearly 4 years now, 3.5 years ago. And by that time, I was running an organization at the time, a wonderful organization, but I was very, very tired. And the external world kind of forced me to really think about what I wanted to do. So I was looking at jobs and I saw the job descriptions. And I always used to say that I'm an anti-NGO person, you know? So I'm like you could say I'm a little bit on the edge of, I play on the edge of the arena. And I looked at the job descriptions, and to be honest, I felt like my soul was being crushed. Because there's a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of boxes and squares, and I'd always worked with people and initiatives that were very, very kind of, you could say, chaotic, but also brilliant. And so thinking about going into these boxes and being, doing this kind of work was just, it hurt me to look at it. And at a certain moment, I don't remember when that moment, I remember the moment, I had some crazy thought. Like the thought was, what if I could just see what I want to do for a year and see if it works? And if it doesn't work, then I'll get a job. But then if it works, then I'll be doing what I want to do at this point. Not to say that I'd always been doing what I wanted to do, but I did no longer wanted to do that. So I called up my mom because I had some savings, but I didn't have enough for a year. And I asked her if she would loan me some money for a year to see if I could really find what I wanted to do. And my mom, without hesitation, was like, yes.
Wow, that's incredible.
And I just, in that moment, my heart just expanded and opened. And I was so happy until the end of my savings. And when I started to use my mother's money, the money I'd borrowed from her. And then I went into intense fear. I had no idea what I was doing. I thought I was being really crazy. I had no idea how anything was going to work. I was really in darkness and fear, and the fear paralyzed me. I started with what I knew, which was teaching, because I taught spiritual philosophy in yoga teacher trainings in Zanzibar for about 5-6 years. So, and I knew I loved that, and I did teach 1 or 2 courses. And I had learned a technique when I was pregnant called Psych K, which allows you to transform your subconscious patterns in just a few minutes. So I had registered with Conscious Kenya as a practitioner, just basically because Narissa, one of the co-founders, asked me to, and she kept asking me. So I'm like, okay, let me just do this. And I put up Psych K and I put up teaching. And then I put up my previous background in peacemaking. And I think it was like a couple of months later, somebody called me and they said, I really want to do Psych K. You're the only one in Kenya. I'd like to come for a session. And I'm like, oh, okay. Up until then, I'd only done sessions for friends and just to show them how amazing the technique was. And so I started working with her. When she came through, she was really in a crisis place in her life. And I asked her if she was open to integrating other things, not only the Psych K, because Psych K is a really great tool and it has its own modality. But I felt I wanted to bring in the teaching. So she was open. And so what would happen was when she would raise an issue, I would start to teach about like a kind of a deep kind of idea or concept or a topic. And the teaching started coming more and more through me. And as I started doing this more and more, I started to see things about her life that I couldn't have known. I started to get higher information. I started to feel that flow. And I'd been feeling it when I was teaching in moments in Zanzibar, but now it was just coming more and more. And pretty soon I was literally closing my eyes and seeing. And that was kind of the basis of helping a person know where to go, where to work. And at a certain point, I started realizing how I was just helping this person to lift and lift and lift and lift. And at some point, I realized that I was a healer. And when I first used the word, I was like, this is such a crazy, creepy, weird word. I don't even like this word. But I got another client and then another client, and at some point I just accepted that this is who I am, and that I've always been using this, but without doing it intentionally. And that now I could just switch it on and switch it off. I could just use it whenever I wanted to. And that's how I became a healer.
Oh, wow. That's an incredible story. I like the way you say that you've always been using this, but you didn't realize until you decided to take that year off and really intentionally decide that, I'm going to see where this takes me. And I think sometimes that is what it takes, because it's something that you've been doing almost unconsciously. And this I find true for a lot of spiritual healers, is that they've been doing this almost unconsciously. And then they come to the realization that, this is what I'm meant to be doing. So you talk about this Psych K. Can you expand a little bit more about that?
Yeah, Psych K is a very powerful modality that is not very well known, even though it's been around for decades. It's not very well known because it can raise your consciousness very quickly. And so only people who are ready to raise their consciousness so fast will have access or will come into contact with Psych K. So yeah, it was originated by a guy called Rob something or the other. Originated means it was downloaded. Okay.
Yes.
And it basically allows you to work with beliefs in the subconscious and just in 2-minute processes to change them to whatever you desire them to be. Okay.
That's incredible. So you can actually transform limiting beliefs.
Yes, in just a few minutes each.
So how do you identify the limiting beliefs? Because I don't think we know what our limiting beliefs are, right?
Right. So, I mean, if you're doing a lot of inner work, you will, right? And there are different techniques that you can use to identify limiting beliefs, but that's where the intuition in my work comes in, because, you know, there are layers and layers and layers and layers in the subconscious mind. So even if you deal with one layer, you'll go further, and then you'll deal with another layer of the same thing, and another layer and another layer. And with the intuition, I can basically go and see right down to the root and know that's where it is.
Okay. That's incredible.
But just remember that the mind is vast. The subconscious mind is 95% bigger than, it's 95 times larger than the conscious mind. And the conscious mind is huge. The conscious mind, we're having 70 to 80,000 thoughts a day. It's a lot in our conscious mind. Our mind overwhelms us all the time. But the subconscious mind, multiply that by 95%. It's vast. It's got all kinds of information in there. It's every single memory of life. It's stuff from past lives. It's ancestral. It contains everything.
Yeah.
So with the intuition, we can go down and see, hey, this is really what's the cause of this issue. And then we spend time working with that. I mean, Psyche is not the only modality that I use. There are many, many powerful modalities. But it's a really useful one, because where there are blocks, you can just work with the belief system, and it's automatic, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, as you know, there are so many powerful modalities, and I work with many. But
it's interesting that you say that the subconscious mind is so vast, because I'm a strong believer in, you know, that we're having a human, the saying is that we're having a human experience in a spiritual body, and not the other way around. You know, that only 5% of our entire consciousness is within this structure, and the rest is out there.
Yeah, well, I like to think of it as we are all of it. We are spirit and we are body. We are mental, we are emotional, we are physical, we are energetic, and we are spiritual, we are conscious. And they're all connected to one another, you know? And so the source of ourselves, the source of who we are, and the truth of who we are is spiritual. But that these different bodies that we have, the energetic body, the emotional body, the mental body, the intellectual body, the physical body, these are incredible technology that allows our spirit to express itself into the physical world, which is a beautiful world. So that's how I like to see that. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about your channeling journey.
So it started when these intuition things, like I just started realizing that I'm channeling topics that I don't really think about, or I don't, some of the stuff.
Before you go ahead, sorry, Neha, a lot of our viewers, I think, wouldn't know what channeling means. So explain to them what channeling is, and then you can go into your journey.
So I'm just going to share what I think it is. I have not been trained or educated in this field. It's just something that, actually, I've not been trained or trained formally on most of this stuff, but so to me, channeling is when you just access higher realms of information. So this whole cosmos is basically information. It's many things. It's energy, but one aspect of energy is information. So another aspect of energy is sensation or feeling, because you feel energy also. But another aspect of the energy is information. And so the whole cosmos is information. Like you could just imagine that everything, for example, is mathematics. Every leaf on the tree is just a bunch of degrees. It's symmetrical patterns. It's geometry and all of this kind of stuff, right? In the same way, everything is information. Everything is a physical manifestation of the divine mind, of divine intelligence. And so now our conscious mind, it operates only in time and space. Like our conscious mind operates in time, future and past. That's all we can think about. We can't access information we don't have with the conscious mind. But when we use our heart, then we can access information that's beyond our physical time and space. And so channeling is literally just connecting to information or to energy and articulating that. So it's bringing forward messages. Now, when I teach, I often channel the teaching. So I usually prepare my classes. Now I'm preparing them about 15-20 minutes before the class. And it just, even new topics, like even topics I haven't sat down and thought about, maybe those take about 30 to 40 minutes, you know? But again, I just start and it just comes and it just comes and it just comes and it just comes. And it's sort of channeled down. So it's a natural thing for me to do. And I've been doing it with what I call wisdom, right? That's what I really teach. But in some cases, messages come for people I work with one-to-one. Sometimes it's from a loved one. Sometimes it's higher beings. Sometimes it's angelic. Sometimes it's just love that wants to say something, you know, and it's a slightly different quality than just the teachings. And recently I've been working with a friend of mine who's pushed me and has asked me to channel different people from the past, basically spiritual teachers and enlightened beings. And the first time I did it, I'm like, are you crazy? Do you really is this really gonna work? No idea. But he just stood in front of me and asked me questions, and it all came. And it was really powerful. Like both of us were like, wow, this is so powerful.
It is, for sure.
So that's kind of channeling, yeah.
Wonderful. And is there anything else that you want to talk about today?
I think I want to talk maybe a little bit about what's happening, because this is a podcast for Kenya, right?
Yes.
I think I want to talk about what's happening in Kenya, because I think something really special is happening in Kenya. You know, the expansion of spiritual work. People call it wellness, fine, but it's the same thing to me.
Yes.
It's just, which word are you comfortable
I mean,
with, right?
I was blown away when I went to the Kisima festival. I was blown away by the number of people who are into this kind of work, you know, this inner work and this what they call wellness. Because I honestly thought I was part of a minority, but it turns out I'm not, and I'm so glad to have found that community, because it's wonderful.
Yes, and I think it's something very special is happening here. Like I've been to Uganda, I've been to other places, and there are things that, like in Rwanda, for example, some of the participants came from Rwanda for the festival, and you know, there was actually I talked to one Israeli guy at the end, and he'd only come for the last day, and he was like, I've been to these kind of festivals all over the world, and he's like, this is the real deal. It's so simple. You know, it's so simple. It doesn't have so many frills, but it's real. It's really powerful, and people really care about what they're teaching, and they're really teaching genuinely and seriously. And so I think something very special is happening here. And I think Kenya, you know, it's funny because I worked in South Sudan. Now, South Sudan is a country that's been at war for like 50 years, on and off, yeah. Right? Over 50 years. And people would always come to Nairobi for rest and recuperation, or to Kenya for rest and recuperation. And to me, when I used to work there and I would come here and I would be at ease. I would feel at ease. So in some ways, the energy of Kenya has always been something around well-being and wellness and ease. It's a softer energy. And it has, I think each different country and each different land has different energies, and those energies have different purposes. And I think Kenya really has something very special relating to being a place of healing. And I think that there's been an incredible just expansion of healing. Like healers have just all in the last 3-4 years, we've all awoken, so-called awoken, let's say, stepped into who we truly are, or stepped into this work all at the same time, like between 2019, 2020, 2021. Yeah. Everybody quit their jobs, everybody, changed their lives, everybody was doing this. And so the expansion has been huge. And there was always like yoga and other stuff here happening, but it was very, very limited. And now it's just expanded. And I think it's expanded for a reason. And I think that Kenya has a destiny with healing in Africa.
Yeah.
And not to say that there aren't other places that also have other roles related to healing, but I think that something very special is happening.
Yeah, it's a very unique energy, and I've been feeling it actually since 2020, since COVID actually, which is when I did the quantum healing, and I decided to step into that, and it's an incredible modality. And like every other modality, it really is about healing you at the soul level so that you can manifest whatever it is that you're meant to manifest in this life, and learn whatever it is that you've come here to learn. And yeah, it's been an incredible journey. And I think that's true for most healers, is, you have this experience of being in this corporate world, in this box society, and you feel so confined and so like you want to be free, but you can't be. And then you have this journey where you're forced to let go of everything that you've believed in, and let go of the fear. And then you step into this whole new world that you had no idea existed. And I think that's true for almost all healers.
Yes, I very much think so. I mean, for me, I'm really excited about because I've done some work with organizations, but I feel like that's where it's going to become really exciting. When companies and organizations start to work with this information, knowledge, wisdom, and power and tools, I'm really excited to see what could happen for the world and what could happen for Kenya, for Africa then.
Because it's life-changing when you start to go into the mainstream and change people's hearts and minds, because that's where change begins, right? It begins with your heart and then with your mind.
It begins at the individual level. But I also still believe that, like, at least that's what I'm trying to do with philosophy. That's what I'm doing with philosophy, is these are tools that we can actually use in our work processes. We can create from deeper places. We can become channels for higher information, for higher realms of consciousness, and we can bring those into the world through our organizations, companies, whatever it is that we have created in this world, And when we start to do that, when we stop thinking that we are the ones, that we are the most, like, that our conscious minds and the things that we want to create, that we logically, rationally think about and draw out and think through and look at the data and stuff like that, and create, when we're creating from that space, that's very limited.
Yes.
It's very limited because the conscious mind is really so small. But when CEOs or, executive directors or whatever start to say, hey, imagine if I tap into higher levels of consciousness to create and to bring forth what our next creation is. For me, that's just, wow, that's limitless. And I think most great leaders, they're already doing that. They're already working from deeper places. But now it's like, how do we do that intentionally?
Consciously.
How do we do that consciously? So I'm also really excited about the possibilities for the work. And the possibilities for this country and for Africa.
So can we talk a little bit more about how we could bring this kind of change into the workplace? Because a lot of people are still very skeptical about how spirituality can affect their lives.
Mm.
Um, and some people obviously also don't even believe that this actually exists. You know, that
Yes.
there are deeper levels of consciousness that we can access.
Mm.
So how do we go about changing that mindset?
So I don't think we're gonna do it. I think consciousness is gonna do it. um, I think that I think that there are. Let me just try to speak from a deeper place, right? That's because we're talking about future, and we don't want to think about the future. We want to feel into the future. So for me, there are going to be individuals who are going to have access to this work in their own personal lives, and from their own experiences with it, they're going to know how powerful it is, and how transformative it is, and how much it elevates them and evolves them into becoming and being things beyond what they even thought was possible. And from that vantage point, these people are going to be the risk takers who are going to say, hey, I'm going to bring this in, you know, I want to work with this in my company, in my team, in my project, in my whatever. It's always the risk takers who change this world. And all of us have a different destiny. So for me, maybe my destiny is not owning the company that then makes the product, you know, but I have a role to play in transformation in this world. And so there are others who are destined. There are other, you know, leaders. And by the way, we're all leaders. Everybody's a leader of their own destiny. But there are other leaders who are playing leadership positions in place in areas of work and so on and so on. And they have their destiny, and their destiny will be to bring this through for the earth. So I also really feel that if we try to think our way into how we should be doing this, then we're using old modality to try to create something new. And
Yeah.
all we're going to do is create the same old thing that we created before. So even we as healers, we cannot think our way into this. If we are trying to use our conscious mind to plan out our path,
It's
right?
not going to work.
Then we're using limited possibilities, and not that it doesn't work, but it's going to be limited. What we have to do, I feel, is we have to do all the inner work. For me, the inner work is 80% of our job description. Our own inner work is 80% of our job description. Because as we do our own inner work, we become lighter and we become clearer. And as we become lighter and clearer, we're releasing all the fears of all the risks and all of the what ifs and what are people going to think and all of this kind of stuff. And we start to follow our deeper calling. We have that fear is released and the courage is increased, and we start to follow the deeper calling. And the deeper calling is the path. But we cannot think the deeper calling. We have to respond to its call. And so to me, the way to create the unknown, to create the totally new on this earth, is through new pathways that are unknown, is to step into the unknown.
Have the courage to do that.
To have the courage to walk into the unknown. And that is what everybody. So if you want to evolve, that's what you have to do. You have to walk into the unknown, because evolution is not, oh, this limited step that I think. No, evolution is, I don't know where I'm going, but I know I'm going somewhere great. You know, or I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I know what I want to deliver and express into this world. So I'm ready to walk the unknown path. I don't know which way, but I'm going to follow. And to me, that is the way that the path that you follow, where you can create something completely new on earth. You know, when I began, I wanted to do everything on a pay-as-you-wish basis. Everything, all my work. And I remember having a conversation with who's a person who's really a friend of mine. He's like, you are so brave. I'm like, I just feel that this stuff has so much value. I can't put a number on it, like it was hard at that time. Now, I think a little bit of that was wound about spirituality and not being able to,
charge for your services. Yeah.
Exactly. And all of there was some wound there,
Yes.
but it is still a great vision. And that vision may still manifest at some point in my career, or in my pathway. That's a completely new way of operating. It's been done in Vipassana and it's been successful in Vipassana.
Yeah.
That's how all the Vipassana centers in the world are run. It's a pay-as-you-wish process, right? And so a lot of healers, and it's become a thing in the industry now, pay-as-you-wish, right? But it's not the mainstream, it's not the main way, because most of us, the societies in which we are in are not yet ready for that economically and in their abundance mindset. So there's it's kind of emerging, but in a certain way. And
it's starting to emerge, and eventually, hopefully, it'll grow.
Well, we don't know where it's going. Maybe it's just supposed to be one of the pillars. Maybe it's not supposed to be the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it's one of the pillars that makes sure that because all the healers I know, we want to make sure that we are also accessing people who are outside of, who don't have the financial capacity to pay for our services. And we need to charge for our services because we need to pay rent and buy groceries.
Yeah, we need to live. Healers have the right to live as well.
Exactly. So but we are creating new things already. We've been doing new things already. For example, I mean, the way healers have really been growing this organically, how the industry has really organically grown, is through a lot of collaboration. And those who are collaborating, like, the success is just amplified, the reach is amplified. And so a lot of people have actually been only able to make headway in this work through collaborations.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of new stuff that's emerging. But it's not emerging because we think and calculate, if I collaborate, I'll reach more people.
Yeah, no.
Because we just I can't do this alone. I want to do it with you. Let's do it together, And then we have so much fun doing it. And we're like, let's do more. And then we,
And that's the crux of it, right? It's about enjoying and having the joy of doing whatever it is that you're doing.
It's about following the deeper calling and desire, and
following your bliss, basically.
Following the feeling. Yeah.
So this is a perfect segue to get into abundance, because I think that is a major issue for a lot of people, especially on the African continent. And yes, can you talk a little bit about abundance and the abundance?
Yes, it's so funny you ask, because it's really a big theme for me in my work. And of course, our medicine is what we teach. The medicine that we teach is the medicine that we most need in our life, right? So that's why it's a beautiful design. Our design is beautiful. Yes, so definitely we have. It's funny because I always teach this, and if we look at Africa generally, it's the same for the individual human and for the continent. Wherever our greatest wound, therein lies our greatest power. Okay, so most of us in our life, we're going to have a recurring wound. Okay, we're going to have a recurring wound. For some people, it may be, like, for me, it's rejection, let's say. That's one big wound that I have: rejection, fear of rejection. For another person, it may be being unloved or not finding love, or whatever the theme is, right? That thematic wound, the other side is the power. And if we look at Africa, we really are a nation that we are really struggling with poverty. And I'm not talking about poverty physically. That's one aspect of poverty. But poverty, the cause of the physical poverty is the poverty consciousness, the energy of the poverty that is within the psyche.
It's the victim mindset.
Well, I think it's a bit different than the victim, but victim mindset is a part of poverty consciousness, right? But you can be very rich and have poverty consciousness, okay? Because poverty consciousness is there's not enough. So when you're rich and you're hoarding and you're accumulating and accumulating and accumulating, you're coming from a consciousness that's not enough. So I have to keep more and
Yeah.
more and more and more. Okay. And I only spend so that I can avoid my horrible feelings. So I'm stopped by the police, I spend so I don't have to deal with my emotions around, engaging with challenge. Or, something's not working, let me pay them. Right? So I don't have to deal with going and healing that energetic part of myself. So it's used as an avoidance, right? And also money is with people who are very wealthy is used as numbing. Oh, let me eat and let me feel good, let me feel good, let me feel good, let me feel good, always from the outside. Let me buy this and have this, and now I know I feel I have status and I'm good, I'm powerful and all this stuff. So that's the rich side of poverty consciousness. And then the poor side of poverty consciousness is, yeah, there's not enough, I'll never have enough, I have to work really hard and get less, and this is the limits and this is my fate, and money is difficult to come by, or everything costs so much, therefore it's always going to go out. So poverty consciousness is within every single person. It is a collective wound.
Yeah.
And if you look at Africa as a continent, it's maybe the most abundant continent on earth.
Truly, it really is.
So just see that, see the wound and see the power. Right? So when we change our consciousness, and that changing our consciousness is not just by believing. No, it's about going into the wounds and healing those. It's working with the wound. It's working in what I call the shadow or the darkness. So it's the hard stuff. It's the stuff we don't want to face. Most of us on the healing journey, we have had to face our poverty consciousness, and we are having to work with our poverty consciousness and heal it. Because we've changed careers, we've moved into a field that there's almost no market for. We are creating and building the market through education and through practice.
Yeah.
Right? But there hasn't really been a market for this, and we are building the whole entire industry. And so we are having to come to terms with having financial uncertainty. And that brings up all this stuff that when we had jobs, when we got paid a lot of money, we didn't feel it in our body, but it was there. It was dormant. So we now have to work with that. And then, how much do we charge? How much do we value ourselves with? Where are our financial boundaries? We have to learn all of this stuff. We have to heal all of that stuff, right?
As we go along, yes.
As we go along. And the reason, so abundance is a huge theme of healing for this earth and for every individual. Because, people may be thinking as I'm speaking, well, Neha, there are limited resources out there. We have to, there isn't always enough. And I'll be like, how many trees do you get from one tree? If you leave that tree alone and allow it just to do what it's going to do, how many trees will be produced from one tree? Thousands. And I'll ask you, where does a waterfall start and where does it finish? Tell me. Where is it not enough? How large is the ocean? How many drops of water in the ocean? How much oxygen is there available to us? When does the sun get tired? How much shade does the tree offer? And does the tree distinguish, you can have some, but you can't have some? Even in the desert, there's an abundance of sand and an abundance of solar energy.
Yeah.
So all of this, there's not enough, what about the cake and all of this is all, it's programmed perception. It's programmed poverty consciousness.
I agree.
Nikola Tesla developed free energy in the 1960s, 50s, 40s, whenever. I'm not a very detailed person, but he developed free energy. Now people are coming to learn about it again. We know about renewable energy. We have an abundance of resources, and we have a lot of technology already available to us to harness and to work in harmony with the abundance of energy. It's just our poverty consciousness that is like, no, because I need to make money, because I need to hoard, because I need to accumulate, because I need more, because there's not enough. I'm not enough. So it's shifting consciousness.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So I think that a lot of our abundance beliefs are centered around money. But I think that if we expand, like you've been saying, to include abundance in all things, in nature, in wherever you look for it, And the other thing that I find really, really useful is an attitude of gratitude. So be thankful for, and truly be thankful, not just a surface gratitude, a true thankfulness that, you have a bed to sleep on, just the simple things in life. And once you raise your vibration to that level, then you begin to attract the things that, are equal to that vibration.
Exactly. So when you're not attracting, then you say, okay, let me find all the stuff in me that is pain, fear, what we call shadow or wound. Let me go and work with this. And then you will just see it. And it's so funny because I was just recording something for Instagram before we started. And I was just saying, like, the way to expand your consciousness and to evolve as a human being is through experiments. When you come into contact with new information, try it, because there's no other way to know whether it's real or not.
Yeah, for sure.
So we have to experiment with this. And for me, I've really done very terrible marketing. That's my own, inner wounds. I haven't marketed myself as a healer on Instagram or anything like that. But 3 years after my decision to see what I wanted to do, I'm still alive. I'm still paying rent. I'm doing what I love to do. So I don't know where my clients come from. They just come. And when they slow down, I slow down and I do my own inner work. And then again, so I would say, we have to experiment with that. But abundance it's all around us, but it's also within us. The kingdom of heaven is within you and all around you. Yeah. That's a teaching of Jesus Christ,
Yes, it is. For sure. So Neha, how do people get in touch with you if they're interested in the work that you do?
So I have a website. It's called www.spolosophy.com. I guess you could post it at the bottom of the YouTube video. Will. And my Instagram handle is Spolosophy as well. So
okay, the last thing that I want us to do is maybe, can you, for this group of people who will be watching this, can you do a little bit of channeling maybe and have a message for them?
Okay, let's see what comes through. I can feel uncertainty, I can feel questions, and I can also feel excitement, okay? A little bit of excitement, but I also feel a lot of uncertainty, some doubts, and a lot of questions. It's a very strong energy that's coming through. It's even going to sound weird as I speak. It's very weird for me to channel, by the way, because, energy comes through and I'm like, I don't want to be so weird, but let me get over that. One second, my son is here. We're going to have to pause. Hold on.
Yeah, that's fine. No problem.
Margaret, I need to finish. Thank you. Not yet. I'm not finished. I'm coming in. It's saying, arise, no more excuses, no more ifs and buts. There is no time for you to doubt. We have work to do. It's time to shed the small-minded eye. The eye that is limited, the eye that is at the mercy of the outside circumstance. the eye that needs the clothes, that needs the takeaway. The eye that has small and petty responsibilities. You have a great destiny. That is your responsibility and your only responsibility. To forge that path. That is your task. No more excuses. Quite a stern message. Very masculine.
I find sometimes the guides can get quite, like you're saying, quite stern. But they're always working for our highest good. So even when they're being stern with you, I think you have to. It's like a parent scolding their child, right?
It's basically a stern love, and
yes.
sometimes
tough love.
Sometimes we need a little bit of sternness.
Yes,
because
for sure.
It just kind of snaps us out of this victim. I can't. And that's the energy that I was feeling in the audience today. So that's what comes through. The thing I think I want to say, maybe the more feminine thing is, look, know that you're not alone. Know that you're not alone in this. Know that there are others. There's a community of support. There are others who are walking this path, and this path it's not a comfortable path, because there's no growth in comfort. Comfort is just, it keeps you nice, and comfort is actually where you need rest, but when you're evolving, it's a process of getting into discomfort and building that resilience, with emotional resilience to discomfort. But there's a whole community out there. There's Conscious Kenya, you can check it out. There's myself, Devya. There's so many of us around who can support you. And there's many people who are making these choices every day. So don't think you're alone, and the journey is not. Yes, ultimately you're walking it on your own, but there's a community of support around you.
For sure. Yeah. Well, thank you, Neha. This has been wonderful. It's been such a beautiful conversation. And for everybody out there who's listening, I will post the contact for Neha if you want to get in touch with her. And I'll post my own contacts in case you want to get in touch with me. And yes, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you for holding the conversation.